Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about a subject that has been on my mind for a very long time. And the question or subject is, can small farms feed the world? But first I just want to remind you about my YouTube live session that is tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I want to apologize to all of you folks on the eastern side of the Atlantic Ocean. I know that's not a very convenient time for you, and actually what I will say though is when I was in Europe I did realize how my posting time was inconvenient for you guys, and that's why I've actually started posting videos in the morning. But my YouTube live session has to stay the same way. So let's get into it. I travel around to so many different types of farms. You know, I go to these different types of market gardens just in Sweden at Richard Perkins Farm, and that's kind of brought this question that I've had for so long to the front of my mind. But a lot of these farms that I go to, whether it be to make YouTube videos on, or places that I'm consulting, or places that I'm teaching on, most of these types of farms are in the small scale agriculture space. And there's often this assumption that the goal of small-scale farming should be to feed the world, and I see this in the comment section on my YouTube channel a lot, and so I thought I'd bring this one up. So the assumption is, yes, small farms can feed the world, and there's kind of two ways I want to approach this line of thinking. One is I kind of want to address that question itself, and then the other is I want to answer the question of, can small farms feed the world? So first of all, I want to say that I think the goal of trying to feed the world is an incorrect goal. Mainly because, well, mainly because I don't think small farms can feed the world, but I'll go to why I believe that is true. I think it's the wrong question because I think small farming brings a lot more value that can have more of a personal impact on a local community, an individual, a family, a local economy, a local food system, and all these types of things. The idea is that it's a local approach. It's a small approach. It's not about saving the world. It's about finding meaning in the work that you do. And I think one of the most important and powerful aspects of a small farm like mine is that a person can start a business like this on very little capital compared to what it takes to start a business in any other type of line of work. I started my farm on $7,000. Many of my proteges and peers have started farms on $20,000 or less. So the basic thing is that you can start this business relatively cheap. And I think that has a ton of value. So I don't think the question, can this feed the world, is the correct question with the context. If you understand the context of what small farms do, I don't think it's the right question to ask. Now, to that question, can these small farms feed the world? I think we would be crazy to assume that they could. I mean, we just have to look at the facts. And I don't say this lightly. I don't say these kinds of things because I want to put negative information out there or take away people's hopes and dreams. I want to encourage people to do this. But I think we should always value the truth, and we should always pursue the truth. If there is the conversation that small farms can feed the world, small farms can solve climate change, I think those are misleading questions or results to pursue because they're not true. And if we are putting out information in an era of fake news and misinformation, if we put an information out there that isn't true, people are going to call it out. And if we want people to take small farming and market gardening or regenerative agriculture seriously, we need to be honest, and we need to provide information that is truthful and factual. And so with that, I want to explain why I don't think small farms can or ever will feed the world, and why I don't think that's a bad thing. So first of all, if you look at the numbers of farmers in the world today, it is decreasing every year, and it has been steadily decreasing ever since the Green Revolution, which was the Industrial Revolution of agriculture. Because technology has enabled a farmer to produce more on less land, and that continues to be correct every year that happens, less people want to get into farming. Also, in large-scale farming, which is actually what feeds the world, that is an expensive enterprise to get into, and less people want to get into it because of the risks, and rightfully so. This is why I offer small farming as a solution, but it's not a solution to feed the world. It's a solution to farm and live off the land and make a living at it and find quality of life. That's what it's a solution for. So the amount of farmers is steadily decreasing. Right now, they say it's less than 2% of people in the world work in agriculture. So, and I've said this many times before, I've written this in my book, this is a fact across pretty much all cultures in the world. And of that 2%, there are only a small percentage of those people that would be the type to start a business. So when you say 2% of people work in agriculture, that's everything to do with agriculture. That's huge. But that's still a very small part of the population, and it's decreasing every year. So unless we assume that all of a sudden there's going to be this radical back to the land movement and all these people, we would literally need probably 1 billion or more people to get into agriculture or small farming in order for small farms to feed the world. And I'm not saying that can't happen. That certainly might be a possibility. But if I had to bet on it, I would bet for the trend, not against the trend, because the trend is going like this, and it's been steadily happening for almost 100 years. To bet against that trend is, probably a losing bet if you had to put money or some skin in the game. So that's really what that comes down to. It's just not practical. It's not realistic. And then I don't want to rail on this one too long, but then you get people who say things like, small farming and regenerative agriculture can stop climate change. I just find this kind of claim is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't want to name names. I'm not here to slander people, but I've seen that said in a number of publications by some people that I respect. And I find it insane. Let's just assume, I'm not, to be honest, 100% on that humans are the sole cause of climate change. I'm not 100% on that, and I think there's a lot of data to back that up. But there's also a lot of data to say that they are. So let's just assume that it's all true. Let's assume that humans are the sole cause of climate change. Small farming isn't even a measurable percentage of agricultural production in the world, and they say that industrial agriculture is a major contributor to climate change. It's also a contributor to many other negative aspects to the environment, and I think that's what's more important to look at, whether you want to debate climate change or not. So how is it that small farming could have any significant impact on that if it's not even measurable on the scale of agriculture? So that's my question there, and I think that's why that whole statement is kind of a nothing burger. It just doesn't make any sense when you look at the numbers in agriculture. But again, I don't think any of that matters. I think the purpose of small farming is much more beyond trying to solve world problems. It's about solving your problems. And I frankly think that is much more of a powerful message. One thing that drives me crazy in today's world is that we're always looking for big solutions, and I think a lot of this stems from the fact that most people do not want to take personal responsibility for their lives. It's easier to blame your problems and misgivings on politicians and global events than it is to say, what can I do right now to change the life of my family and community? What can I do right now? So instead of asking, oh well, I can't do this because that's a bigger problem or that's a bigger thing that I can affect, you ask the question, what do I have to do right now to do something? And I think most people are afraid of that because it involves them taking a risk and putting some skin in the game. But I keep saying skin in the game because I think it's so important. I think that's what has to happen. And I think that is much more of a powerful message in the world, because imagine if we had a world where instead of people just hoping for the right politician to get elected or hoping for the right CEO of a company like Elon Musk to save us, is that each of us just took responsibility for our own lives, our family, and then the more responsibility we took on, we take on more and more and more. Wouldn't that be a great goal in life if we could just do that? And so that's what I think about this, if small farming can feed the world or solve problems with climate change. I think it just comes down to personal responsibility. And hey, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, if enough people did that, it would have a significant impact. But I don't think that's the goal you should shoot for. I think we should shoot for personal responsibility and fulfillment in our own lives and find meaning in that, because that could have a really amazing ripple effect. So as far as agriculture is concerned, I think the reality is, in order to change the global food system, we need to change the global food players. And that means that we need to have more organic in agriculture. And I know a lot of people, I see this is a constant conversation in my channel. Like, rototilling is a very contentious issue with many of my viewers and people in the market gardening space. But the reality is, whether you like it or not, the food that you buy, whether it's organic or not, comes from farms that rototill. Whether you think that's sustainable or not is besides the point. That is what most farms do. So I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just saying that's how it is. So if we want to change the global food system and the large-scale producers, we have to make sure that the practices they do make economic sense. And that's why I think it's also important for us to be honest about production methods in small-scale farming, because if we want them to scale, then they have to make economic sense. Otherwise, people aren't going to do them, because people are going to go broke doing them. And I've seen many large-scale organic farms that I wouldn't say are as regenerative as maybe somebody like Richard Perkins' farm, in the sense that Richard's certainly building a lot of topsoil. They might not be building topsoil in the same way, but they are treating the soil good. And tractor-based farming can be very sustainable. You know, a lot of the bed turnover or crop turnover strategies with large-scale organic farms, particularly ones that are more orientated towards, let's say, more sustainability than others, because there's tons of organic farms that aren't really sustainable by any means. They're using fertilizers and pesticides in the same way that conventional farms are. They just happen to be certified organic inputs. But the large-scale farms that are more regenerative are doing things like cover cropping in between crops. So it'll be tractor-based farming where they plant a crop, they harvest that crop, they broadcast seed or seed drill into an area with a cover crop, like a mix of fall rye, peas, and vetch and things like that. They'll grow that cover crop up to like 6 feet tall in the growing season, and then they'll flail mow it and till it, and then they'll plant another crop, and then they might do that again in the fall. So there are ways that these organic farms can do better with the soil, to do better to build the soil. I'm not saying they're perfect, but these are things that have to be practically looked at if you are seriously considering changing the food system. So myself personally, I'm not really concerned with saving the global food system. If I can make an impact in my community and the people immediately around me, then great. I mean, that's me as a farmer speaking to you. As a person who is as a public figure and is on sort of a world stage, in that respect, I do have a very great interest in changing the world's food system, and I do that by sharing the information and things that I've learned through my experiences with you guys, and maybe you'll be inspired to take those things, refine them, make them better, and maybe even scale them. And wouldn't that be great? So those are my thoughts on that issue. If we can feed the world through small farming, I think the answer is no. But that's not really what it's about. All right, if you guys found that helpful, please hit the subscribe button and the notification button next to it. Like and share the videos with your friends, and come out to one of my events. I've got events coming up this fall. My next stop is in Selmer, Tennessee. That event is selling out pretty quickly. So get your tickets for it soon if you want to come. We had a fabulous time last year, and Rose Creek Farms is getting even better than it was before. I've been doing events down there for a couple years now. I'm super stoked to get back there because their farm is amazing and the people in the south are awesome. So maybe I'll see some of you guys there. All right, talk to you later.